This is the seminar presentation for qualitative research. This week we are going to discuss ethnography. In our text, ethnography is described as writing culture. Another description, which I like, is portrait of the people. This type of research entails participation either as an observer, interviewer, and/or participant observer to gain an understanding of how people's lives are realized in their world. Ethnographic research seeks to understand on a deep level how people's reality makes sense to them and has a meaning in their lived setting. This is accomplished by interviewing, observing, and recording people's lives and activities in their natural setting. Because the ethnographer is expected to deliver a descriptive narrative about a group's context and activities, long-term or longitudinal studies of events and activities are not unusual. These events and activities may be specific to a religious group, a family, a political setting, or economic life. The participants are in their natural setting and observations are made, recorded, analyzed, and cited. Ethnographers may also use content analysis to study various types of documents, as well as cultural artifacts to grasp historical context. A debate exists about whether or not objectivity is possible in an ethnographic study as well as qualitative research in general. Thus, an ethnography can be said to be an interpretive perspective. There are three types of bias which might get in the way of an accurate accounting. First is the sampling bias, which means the sample population is skewed or non-representative. This bias might happen because the informants might not be generalizable to any setting. Further, the field location must be a microcosm of a larger view. What happens in one place may not be happening everywhere. And the last factor in a sampling bias is time. Longitudinal studies generally work best in an ethnographic consideration because time can create its own bias. The second bias, which might limit objectivity, is theoretical bias. This type of bias comes about because of preconceived notions that the researcher has at the outset, and informants or locations may be selected because they are consistent with the already supposed outcome. The third bias is that of a personal nature. As researchers, our personalities, cultural orientations, social status, and political ideations can color how we perceive what we are studying. To set up our research, selecting your location should be carefully considered as to its viability of access. Establish key informants who are significant to and help ease entry. These informants provide critical information. Know that certain researcher traits such as age, gender, social class, and racial ethnic background can enhance or inhibit access. Understand who your gatekeepers are and build relationships which will be invaluable. Formal gatekeepers provide formal permission to enter the setting for the purpose of research. Informal gatekeepers can provide entry because of their position or influence over the setting. Your ability to move away from outsider status is critical, so building relationships is important. What roles might a researcher play in order to participate? There are varying degrees of participation. First is that of complete observer. The complete observer's identity is hidden and makes observations of and in the setting, being careful not to interrupt the natural flow of what is happening. Sometimes recording the activity with a hidden camera or a one-way mirror to avoid detection. The next role is participant as observer. In this role, the researcher's identity is known. The role of researcher is limited because their open identity makes the participant subject to changes in behavior. As researchers' roles gain depth of function, the next part one could play is the observer as participant. The researcher's identity is known and is also a part of any activities. Some distance is created, which would minimize the researcher's impact on the setting or the people and/or situation being studied. The last type of participation is the complete participant, who actively engages in the setting. If this is the type of researcher on board with the research, care must be taken to not cloud their perception of the activities. Evaluating data will require an organized outlook of how the data is recorded and assessed. The data is recorded in field notes, and opinions abound about methods for doing this because keeping notes on research is most likely personalized to the researcher. On-the-fly notes are phrases and words which will help the researcher to remember events or ideas occurring while making observations. Thick descriptions are exacting descriptions that include all of the senses a researcher needs to recall such matters as words said, things smelled, and visuals for accuracy of depiction. Data analysis, interpretation, and theories are a linking between on-the-fly and thick descriptions, the interpretive aspect of one's quick notes combined with thick descriptions. The researcher personalizes and reflectively examines his or her own responses to include emotions about what is being researched. And finally, the accounting or summary provides a look at what research has discovered and what the researcher surmises is its meaning. We have defined ethnography and discussed its place in research. Next, we look at different biases. We talked about setting up the research, types of participation, and finally, ways to assess, interpret, and document data.